So here we are. I'm James Bailey, and I spent more than 30 years running projects and programs for the kind of organizations you have heard of: government, infrastructure, and finance. I'm also an accredited PRINCE2 trainer, and I'm going to be straight with you. I'm not going to read you the manual. You can get a book for that, and you can get AI to summarize it for you. But what you can't get elsewhere is the learning from someone who's actually been in the thick of it, even when it all goes wrong. And I'm going to show you what worked and what didn't. Now, this episode is all about the things that keep a project honest and whether it still deserves to exist at all. And in PRINCE2, they call it continued business justification. So, let's start with the thing that most people get wrong. They think PRINCE2 is all about paperwork. It isn't. At its heart, it's 7 principles. And when we understand those, everything falls into place. Let me set the scene. I was working on a government program at a national scale, a system to process penalty notices, which are the tickets you get for speeding or running a red light. Now, the current systems were end of life, and the whole country needed a replacement. And this was to help with the increasing demand from the police forces and to reduce operational costs. Now, the part that matters is this. I was brought in to write a business case. But this project had already been running for 5 years and had gone to 6 sign-offs, 6 separate times, and every single time it didn't get through. And each attempt was burning through more and more of the funding. Because architects, designers, technical experts, none of them are cheap. And this was before we'd even accounted for the cost of every trip to the board for approval. So I wrote what I believed to be a comprehensive case to finally close the deal. And I built that on the 5-case model. And that is the strategic case, which is why this project matters. The economic case, which is what are the options and which one is the best value for money. The commercial case, the financial case, and actually how we plan to deliver it and manage it. This is before that approach even had its modern name. So I was working off PRINCE2 and the Treasury's current thinking at the time. Now, this framework has been rewritten more than once, and again this year it has just been revised. But the principle underneath it still remains the same. So, I presented the 3 options, honestly. Option 1, the most we could deliver with the remaining budget. Option 2, the middle of the road. And of course, option 3, the bare minimum just to keep things running on our internal systems. Now, the original estimate for this build ourselves had been around £7 million. But the money that actually came through was well short of that. And it was tapering year on year on year. And what remained was never going to be enough to build the original design for what we needed. And it's at that moment the board then took a look at it and they referred back to the mandate, which is, what did we actually set out to achieve? And what they saw, even with our very best option presented, no longer would get them where they needed to go. Because the funding just wasn't enough. And the most we could deliver inside the remaining budget was just a fraction of the original intent. Now, here's where most people expect this to go. Being 5 years in, with 6 rejections and money just draining away, surely someone was just going to wave this through, save face, protect the money that we've already spent and just get something approved. But they didn't. They said no again. Because that was the honest answer to does this project still justify itself? And the answer was no. Now, that is discipline, holding the line when every instinct says, approve it and move on. That is continued business justification doing its actual job. But what is interesting is what actually happened next. Yes, that business case was rejected, but it didn't just die. The senior supplier, a person on the board who owned the build, took my case and turned it into something else. And he went to the existing provider, the one who was actually already running our systems, and he wrote to them a new brief explaining what we are trying to build ourselves. And here's why we can no longer do this in-house. And he asked, if we continue to work with you, can you deliver these outcomes with this remaining budget? And they came back and said yes, easily. And this was because they already had the infrastructure. They had an operating system. So they weren't building something from scratch like we were planning to do. They were just simply adding to what already existed. And that became the new way forward, and that is what got signed off. So let's just think about what actually happened here. The business case failed on the path it was written for because it was honest, because it told the truth about what the money could buy and what it couldn't. But it became the foundation for a new proposal that would work. And that is the lesson here. A business case is not just a form you fill in once to get investment. It is a live, living document. And you need to keep going back to it and ask one question. Should this project exist in its form and for this reason? And you have to be brave enough to answer that question, even if the answer is no. Next time, I will talk about Principle 2, which is learn from experience. But for now, just think about that one question, and it will change how you look at every project you touch. And by the way, I've just created a free PRINCE2 mock exam practice. So if you just want to refresh your skills, see if you would still pass the exam, or you actually need to practice the exam before your big day, you can find them at jamesbailey.uk/exams. I'm James Bailey, and I'll see you next time.